Hey everybody, I'm Cahlen Lee, and today I'm answering the question, what is open source software? So open source software is basically anything like an application or an app that you might find on your phone or on your desktop computer, which its source code, or you can think of it as its blueprint or like its DNA, the information that tells it how to run and do what it does. When you're running open source software, you can go and look at that code. So in proprietary software, that's software that generally people keep to themselves. So for example, Microsoft Word, you can use Microsoft Word, but you can't go and read the code. So why is it important to be using open source software? So one of the main reasons, at least for me, is the fact that you can know what's actually going on inside the software. So there's a lot of applications or apps for your phone which are gathering data on you and doing lots of other things that maybe you don't know that they're doing. And if it's open source software, you can go in and you can verify that that's not happening. And you don't necessarily even have to go in and verify. You just kind of can assume that if someone's making open source software and that there's a lot of people using it, that they're not going to put stuff in there that other people wouldn't like. Now, of course, that's not always true, and you can't assume just because it's open source that it's going to be safe, but you do have the opportunity to go and verify that. Another nice thing about open source software is that it is generally free. So it's not always the case. Sometimes there are various arrangements where if you want certain features or you want a certain service from the company that put out this version of the software, then it might cost you a little money. But generally, if the source code is available, then you can take it and you can build that code and make the application yourself. So it is free, you just may not get some features that a company may be offering, which are actually a proprietary part of that software. Another big advantage is that it's customizable. So if you find an application which you like, but there's something that you would like to be a little bit different about it, or maybe even a lot different about it, you can take what's there and modify the parts that you want, build that code, and now you have an application which is customized for you. So an example of this is I use something called Nextcloud, which is, you can think of it kind of like Google Drive, except it's open source, and I run it on my own computer, and all of my devices connect to it. Now, it generally comes with a, basically the screen, the UI is mostly white, and I don't really like that light shining into my eyes when I'm working on it. So I went into the code and changed all of the backgrounds to black and changed all of the text to white. So that's just an example of things that you can do with open source. So it's also nice if you're a coder and you're trying to learn from the example of others. So if you have an application that you're trying to make but you don't really know how to do a certain thing, you can go and find open source applications which are doing that thing and see examples of how they're doing it. And you can compare and contrast, and you can even just straight copy what other people have done because it's open source. Of course, that's going to depend on the license. Sometimes people will say if you're going to use my code that there's some stipulations which you need to be following. But generally, you can just take that code and use it and modify it however you want and see how other people are doing things successfully and start to do that yourself. One of my favorite things about open source software is that it's generally made by people who are passionate about what they're making. They're not making it because they're trying to make money. They're making it because they think that it's important. They either want that application for their own use, or they think it's important that that application is available to other people. And so it's generally a really good community. And if you're someone who's wanting to be in development or even just testing software, it's fun to get involved and be a part of making a project. So what are some examples of open source software that are out there? So basically for any type of application which you would normally spend money to get a copy of or to get a license to have permission to use it, there is an example of open source software available which basically does the same thing. So for example, if you're using Internet Explorer, which is a proprietary application, you can't see the source code, you can use Firefox instead. I'm sure most people have heard of that. Or what about Microsoft Office, which has Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all kinds of applications inside of it. And it's pretty widespread and a lot of people use it. Well, there's something called LibreOffice, which does all of the same thing and can even open all of those files for you and edit them. Photoshop, there's something called GIMP, which basically does the same thing. There's a little bit of a learning curve there, but it's basically just as powerful. If you're doing video editing, there's actually quite a few different options. One of them that I like to use is called Cahlen Live. And then even if we're just talking operating systems, so there's Microsoft Windows and there's the Apple OS, and these are all proprietary. But there is an open source option, and that is Linux. And Linux is actually very easy to use and very powerful and completely open source. And if we were talking about smartphone operating systems, Android is partially open source, but if you're buying a phone which has the Google version of Android on it, then it does have proprietary features which you aren't able to see the source code for. But there are versions of Android which you can get, and I have my phone here, which I call my stealth survival phone, and it's running Lineage OS, which is a completely open source version of Android, and basically all of the applications that are on it are also open source. So you can probably tell that I'm a huge fan of open source, and I definitely think it's as a very important thing for humanity in the long term in terms of where we're going to go in the future. Because proprietary software does affect how we end up thinking and what we end up valuing and the decisions that we make. And it's also giving information to people who maybe aren't using it for good purposes, information about you that maybe you want to be private. So I think open source is really important. I definitely recommend looking into it. Basically, if you want an open source alternative to some application that you're using, just do a search online and search the application name and then say open source version or something like that. And I'm almost certain that something will come up. So that's my answer to the question, what is open source software? Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time. If there's anything you would like to ask me, you can head on over to ask.cahlen.org, and you can search to see if I've already answered your question, and if I haven't, you can submit it there, and I'll get an email, and I'll answer it with a video as soon as I can. Hey, if you enjoyed this video or found it valuable to you, I hope you will consider it a gift from myself to you. And if you would like to return the favor, you can go to gift.cahlen.org. I've got a list of things that I need at the moment. And in return, I offer a free coaching session to anyone who donates something to me. So if you want to learn more about the coaching stuff, you can go to coach.cahlen.org. Thanks again for watching.